Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels horror stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the feat athletics. Is that no? Athlete. Sorry. And I was thinking, finally, a feat that will improve my athletic skill.
Oh, I was thinking finally a feat that represents both of what we were in high school. Um,
Unfortunately, it's neither of those things.
Correct. So this is from the PHB. You have undergone extensive physical training to gain the following benefits. Increase your strength and dex to score by 1 to max 20. That is a great place to start. That means as long as you can get an auto and even, and those are both really relevant ability scores, you can probably take this on any character. Like if you start with like a 17 strength or a 17 dex on a rogue or a fighter, this is a really easy way to be like, all right, now I get a +1 to my hit, my AC in the case of dex, my dex saves, my strength saves, all that fun stuff, my athletics checks. I get all that, and then what else do I get? Well, we get this text. When you are prone, standing up only uses 5 feet of your movement. Okay. You also get climbing doesn't cost you extra movement, so you kind of get a climb speed, but it isn't specifically a climb speed. It just means you can climb at a regular rate, but not better. It's not. We'll get into it a little bit. I don't know the exact rules around the difference between being able to climb faster and having a climb speed, but there are meaningful differences in some cases, like there was swim speed. I don't care. Yeah. So you also you can make a running long jump or a running high jump after only 5 feet of movement instead of 10 feet of movement. This functionally increases your jump distance because your jump distance costs you movement and does a calculator for it. And when you punch at the calculations, it still is capped by whatever your speed is. So this kind of lets you move further and jump further by having to need less room to jump. So you can like step at the wind with this with Bonk if you want to go a little bit further jumping. It's very niche. Rarely comes up. If you don't know the jump roll calculations off the top of your head when you're playing like a monk or a fighter or something, you probably have no reason to consider that a boon on this particular element of the feat. So here's my big question. How much does climbing doesn't cost you extra movement? How much do I need to want that to just represent some sheet? Because I don't think the other two I care about at all. Do you care about either two at all?
Well, I don't think there's going to be many instances where I need to make a running long jump and I only have 5 feet to work with.
Yes, there will be a few instances where you'll be jumping more, you will have less speed than you would have available distance to jump using the jump rules.
Yeah.
And this gives you an extra 5 of that by shortening the running distance. Now, I think there aren't going to be many instances where that's going to matter.
No.
But I think that's the meaningful text of that for what that's worth.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think you're still right in that's not going to come up. I just think it's not going to come up for different reasons.
The prone thing doesn't impress me much, and what I think it should have been was like standing up cost you nothing because you're doing that thing where you're lying on back on the ground and you just flip your legs forward. Yeah. That would at least be cool. Yeah. This doesn't feel like it's that. It's like, all right, well, I'm getting
really
on one
shuffling
knee.
Yourself up.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are you're still prone. I mean, you do have to get up. So like
the
while you're prone,
prone normally is a condition melee combatants want to impose, not ranged combatants, right? Because ranged combatants get disadvantage if you're prone on attacking, right? So you're gonna see like paladins and barbarians and enemy warriors and stuff trying to knock you prone. Like wolves do this all the time. You don't care where your speed is because you're just gonna hit it, right? Like whenever you get up from being prone, you go, okay, now it's my turn, and then you just try and cut its head off. You're not like, I'm going to now use this speed that I spent spending up to do this. Like the prone rules have never made great sense, just because when I say don't make great sense, I mean the getting up cost isn't really a meaningful cost. It's just I get up, okay, and then there wasn't any real consequence to that beyond the disadvantage on attack rolls against you while you were down there. Yeah. So it's not like changing it from 5 to 10 is like the same thing as getting mounted, right? Mounting with 15 or 5 makes almost no difference because your horse is doing the movement after that. In this case, you're not moving at all after that, so it doesn't matter if you went up 5 feet or 15 feet. Like that speed difference is entirely moot in the vast majority of circumstances.
Climbing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this actually seems better than a given climb speed because, like if it just said, all right, you have a climb speed of 35 or whatever, that's fixed.
I understand.
Right. If somebody hastes you, then you can climb like a motherfucker, right? You just scurry up the tree like nobody's business.
Yeah, you get to zoom. because it scales whatever your ground speed is, which is just your speed
Right.
with your climb speed. So the faster you go on the ground, the faster you can climb, which is really great. Because normally climbing costs you twice. It costs you 2 feet for one. Basically, climbing is a
Right.
difficult terrain. So having this text means you can climb very speedy equal to your base speed, and then like you suggested, speeds on top of that would replace it and not necessarily scale with it. Because whenever you get a base improvement to your speed, it doesn't improve all of your. It might improve all of your speeds. Speeds are weird. Hold on. Like I pulled up movement because I'm like, this is gonna come up, and it's like we're talking about a minute point that doesn't matter for what that's worth, right?
Yeah.
The difference
Yeah.
between getting a climb speed to not get this and getting climb speed that would include this is moot. It's still just 30-foot climb speed, but like, just for the sake of knowing. I'm curious. Specialized movement. Climb, crawl, swim, or jump to get where they need to go. Climbing, swimming. While climbing or swimming, each foot of movement costs extra unless the creature has a climbing or swimming speed. And then the GM can make slippery surfaces or harder to things require checks. So no, there's no functional difference. And improvements to your speed does in fact improve your climb and fly speed, I believe.
Okay, well, whatever. It's
Today we learned.
yeah, I've been learning a lot today.
It's been a weird day.
So I guess if like there's like an old lady in your neighborhood and her cat keeps getting stuck in a tree, then yeah, athlete's the way to go.
I like climbing a lot, actually. So, like, while we're kind of writing it off, climb speeds are useful, especially if you're in dynamic environments and you ask about them. Being able to scurry up the side of a building really quickly is very good. And if you're a strong character that can do it without like worrying about failing a DC 10 athletics check, you're going to be able to scale a lot of things. And having that
Wait,
cost
the
no extra
side of a
movement-
building?
Yeah, like in medieval time, there's like plant boxes and old stone
All right,
bricks
yeah,
and
okay,
ample
okay.
handholds, right? Like I'm not talking
Okay.
about a sheer metallic
Right,
skyscraper with
right.
today's standards. We're talking like
Yeah.
like old cobbled together wooden buildings that have ample handholds, old castles and stuff, right? That have lots of
Right.
dents and rock chips away. If you're making strength checks relatively consistently, this is a great way to leverage that. This is a great way to scurry up inside the building, right? Like I like second story work on Thief a lot, which is it gives them a climb speed. It lets you really navigate in 3D space. Now, in order for it to work and matter, you have to be in environments that like playing in 3D space, and that isn't every table. A lot of tables, especially if you're on battle maps, I find 3D space gets a little bit more flattened out, and you start kind of playing on a plane where it's you care about squares and cover and stuff, but you care a little bit less about scaling inside of buildings, getting shots around corners. You care a little bit less about climbing really tall trees or navigating up and down along cave ceilings and whatnot. There are less complexities in battle maps because you have to like the scope is not in the brain, it's on the page, so you have a little bit less to work with. But that's all to say, if you can find places to leverage having a height advantage, having a climb speed is great. Having climb speed means you can get somewhere that enemies can't, and you can shoot at them while you're doing it, right? That's all upside that I think makes this reasonable on a subset of characters. Now, do I take this over the weapon feats? That's a different question. I don't know. I think it's close. I like it a lot more than I know a lot of people do. I don't know. I've come around on it quite a bit.
I haven't.
Climb speeds aren't bad.
No, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just, I mean, is it good enough for a feat?
Probably not.
I'm trying to remember the last time I tried to climb something in D&D.
Okay,
it
yeah.
could happen if I wanted to more, I guess.
So I'm hyping up climbing a lot. It isn't an every encounter kind of thing. It isn't a most encounter kind of thing for most tables, and that's going to be an issue with it, right? Like, it's going to be useful in a handful of encounters, maybe per adventure, and that isn't necessarily where you want to be. So, to answer my own question, is this better than the weapon attack feats? The answer is probably no. And I don't rate those very highly, so athlete can't ever be that good. It still gives you a +1 mod, which is fine. I just wish if it gave you the climbing and another reasonable thing, I'd be a lot more excited about it, right?
Yeah, but just gave you like, advantage on athletics checks.
Yeah.
Like it's called athlete.
Even just like expertise in athletics checks seems like the really easy thing to do, right? Pick acrobatics or athletics, you double it. Sure, that seems great.
That'd be great.
Add your proficiency bonus twice. That seems like the natural direction where this would go. It's not though, and like
no.
In my written review, I've talked about briefly, like human beings do crazy awesome things with our bodies, with as far as like the Olympics and huge athletic feats of strength. You've seen gymnasts do insane things, right? Just like flipping and twisting and flying all over the place. It's insane. Like Cirque du Soleil's entire profits are based off of pushing humanity's athleticism to its extremes. Getting any of that in a magical game as a feat seems like a reasonable place to get it, right? To be like, oh yeah, I am a linebacker. I'm not moving. You're going to hit me and nothing's going to happen, right? That could be useful in a combat-based game. Getting up from prone isn't that useful getting up combat-based game. At least not getting up from prone faster. Running long jumps improved is not useful. Let me have cannon rolls for pole vaulting. Let me like triple my jump distance if I use a pole arm or something. Like give me something else here to make it more than just the climb speed.
So who do you think wants this?
A niche fighter. A fighter that's objective is to climb. A fighter with a 17 strength. That's a very important element. You have to care about the mod. If you care about the mod, it's the characters that want to be the swashbucklers, that want to be the I'm climbing around on things, fighting dirty. I want to be zipping around my environment, getting up to interesting places and using them with leverage. So again, I think like fighters, rangers would be where I would see it most. I don't think you take it early on those characters, nor do I think it fits easily in because of the dedicated feats that you need on most of those builds, right? Like because you're dedicated to 4 different feats on some of them, you have no room for athlete. I don't think most characters have room for athlete because you also want to like take supplemental feats that make you better at out of combat stuff like spells. So
because you mentioned the thief rogue earlier, so I wonder if those two abilities would stack, and then so I looked up.
Don't.
No, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Climbing just doesn't cost you extra movement.
Yeah. Thief rogue's like hallmark feature is fast hands because you get to use bonus action potions and stuff, which is fun. But like second story works pretty fun on that character too. And like you can often play that character without an aim in mind of starting outside the building with your longbow or your crossbow or whatever and taking shots from a nice safe distance. And that's why I like ranger with this a lot, right? It does kind of a similar fantasy.
Yeah, if I wanted this type of effect, I'd probably just play a thief rogue rather than take this feat.
Yeah, I also think like you play a species that gets it, right? Like something with a climb speed isn't that hard to find if you really, really want to scurry up and down things. So it's definitely not worth a whole feat. It like again, I'm kind of in a position where is it worth half a feat? I think the answer is still probably no, but I think it still deserves a 2. Like it's not unusable trash. We've talked about some unusable trash recently. This is not on that level. But it is still like I don't take this over the vast majority of even the mediocre weapon-based feats. I don't take this over any of the magic giving feats. I don't take this over most of like the utility feats, right? So it probably is low on the totem pole as far as when you would take this, but for the handful of characters that want a good climb speed and have an odd strength or dex, sure.
Yeah, I might have given this a 1 if it was one of the early feats we talked about, but you're right. We've talked about far worse.
Yeah, we would take this. I would take just if this only had climbing doesn't cost you extra movement and the strength dex bug. What function talking about is? I take this over like 5 of the feats we've talked about so far, at least.
Yeah.
Even if the character doesn't care about strength or dex, this does something.
Yeah. No, I probably wouldn't have given her 1. I mean, I don't climb very much, but some people do probably, and probably use some use out of it. I do like the spider climb spell, so I don't know.
This is not bad.
2 sounds fair. No, but 2 sounds good. I'll give it 2. But I'm probably never gonna take it.
Yeah, I think that's the case for most people. I never want to put this on my character sheet if I don't have to. If I want to climb speed, I'll definitely find a better way to get it.
Or fly.
That's just so much easier.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was athlete. Let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.